Okay. Hi guys, this is Renee and
Freya.
And this is Dance Talk episode 2. On Dance Talk, we talk about 4 harmful stereotypes in the dance community, those being eating disorders, the stigma surrounding men in dance, exclusion of persons of color, and treatment of plus-size dancers. All right, thanks for joining me, Freya. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Alrighty. What is your dance background? Like, how long have you been dancing? Where have you danced?
Okay, so I started dance when I was 3 years old. My mom put me into a baby ballet class, and I've been doing it ever since. I take all styles for the most part, but most of my training has been focused on ballet, modern, and then tap and jazz, and has been very technique focused. I just started competing 2 years ago when I was 12, and I'm now 14. So yeah, it's been a very interesting kind of journey. I've been dancing at Bozeman Dance Academy for the majority of it, but this year I also started training with Montana Ballet Company.
And how's it there?
It's a very different environment. They're focused on a pre-professional training program, and so it's very intense, and they have teachers coming in from larger companies that I actually noticed, like, there's definitely more stereotypes enforced there, and with the intensity in the environment, it's
Really?
like
what? Like which ones?
like literally everyone there, like, I was just talking to a girl and she's like, oh my god, I'm so bloated today, and she stopped sucking in and like she literally looks fine,
Yeah.
and then she's like, oh, that's embarrassing, and then she's just like sucks it all back up.
Really?
And like everyone has like either like a flat stomach or like skinny arms, or like they're like always like posing themselves crazy. And I noticed an interesting thing, which I had seen a little bit before in the dance world.
Yeah.
But a lot of girls will hike their leotards up on their hips
Oh, yeah.
to like make them look like skinnier, have like longer legs and
Yeah.
better proportions. And everyone constantly does it there.
Yeah.
It's like obnoxious sometimes. It's kind of insane, but I was like,
It's a little
This is
intimidating
interesting.
there.
Uh-huh.
I went there for 2 classes just to try it out.
yeah.
And I had actually like committed to them. And
Yeah.
but then I performed Twas the first season.
Oh.
And then after the performance with Twas, I was like, oh, I want to stay at BDA.
Yeah.
But I almost went to NBC. But I was definitely pretty intimidated by them because
Yeah.
they're so good, and they're like
Yeah.
always like looking at each other and like thinking what they can do better, and they're and they
Yeah.
like they take it very seriously.
It is. And they just had a new director come in this year, and
I
a
heard
new
about that. Yeah.
staff member, and they're a couple who used to train with Houston Ballet, which is like a world-renowned company,
yeah.
you know. And when I went in for my audition class so they could place me in a level, like
You did an audition class?
Yeah. Well, it was just more of a placement class,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
the first 2 classes this season were auditions for Nutcracker and auditions for their company, neither of which I was joining because I'm still at 2 studios. But like the sheer like judgment, like a dance teacher
It's
on
scary.
some level like needs to judge one so they can get better. But it seemed a little over the top sometimes, and it's definitely
Yes,
intimidating.
yeah.
Like, I don't really know. I know you trained at the dance center for a while. I don't know what that was
Yeah.
like, but
I definitely had some strict teachers, but I think growing up in it, I was used to it.
yeah.
And didn't realize until now. I've started to realize
Yeah.
like this is kind of like borderline pushing kids to develop an eating disorder.
Yeah.
Like telling a 10-year-old to suck in your stomach because you can see their lunch is like
Yeah. That's gross.
I don't like it at all. And teachers like I actually ran into a dance teacher, like one of my old ones, in town recently, and she literally said we were talking about discipline. And she said, yeah, if I told you to suck in your stomach, you wouldn't argue with me about it. You'd just do it. And I go, yeah,
Oh my God.
I would have done that. Like, that is true. I would do that.
Yeah.
But it just, like, reinforced my point, especially with my senior project being on harmful stereotypes. I was like, oh, yeah, this definitely, these comments like this is definitely, like, what caused me to develop an eating disorder at 14.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's all. It's crazy. I mean, I also feel like Miss Abby, our new teacher this year at BDA, she talks to me and she's like, ballet is an art form that you're expected to, like, be perfect, and it's based on achieving the highest level of perfection you can, but it's very hard to do that in what's considered an imperfect body.
Exactly.
And something that's, like, ever-changing and ever-growing, and also, like, a lot of general bodily autonomy, I feel like, is kind of almost like,
unchangeable.
yeah, and it's, like, pushed aside in the dance world. It's, like, expected to change something that's entirely unrealistic.
Yeah, like, you can't always control things. Like,
That's been a big thing I've thought about lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever been affected by any stereotypes or seen anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like growing up in BDA, it is definitely a more inclusive environment.
Yes,
and
it definitely is.
They really focus on maintaining that and not basing, like, everything they do off of dance norms, which I think is good, and it definitely helped my relationship with dance from a young age.
Yes, yeah.
But as I grew older and, like, even, like, talking to other dancers as I started, like, leaving Montana to dance more, and as I started, like, having these interactions on media platforms and talking with older dancers that I became friends with, I noticed really, like, how much negativity there was, I guess. Like, my little cousin, even, she started dancing after I did, and she's, like, definitely plus-sized, and she, like, rocked her body, and she's active and everything, and still there would be these little girls who are like, you can't dance, you're fat, or, like, things like this, and
it's like, and these are little girls saying this, like, who told, like, there's something, like, people telling these girls these things, which is an issue, and then these girls repeating what they hear, which just, like, completes the circle and keeps it going. And
it's definitely a cycle that I think needs to be broken.
It definitely,
But it's hard to do that when there's not enough, like, positive change in people. There's not, like, an incentive to do it right away to those people, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, like, seeing that in her was definitely a bit of an eye-opener. I'm like...
Does she still dance?
Oh my god. She just quit this year, actually. Yeah.
Why?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it just didn't feel right for her, and I think because of also, like, some of the girls' like negativity or like technical kind of things. It just wasn't quite right for her anymore. But
that's so sad.
Yeah, that was sad. And then like since we live in Bozeman, it's a very undiverse town, so I haven't had a lot of experience with like people of color having that difficulty in my community, but like even researching like Misty Copeland or Maria Tallchief and like these female dancers of color who like completely break the ground, I guess, for where they're at. I was like, oh my god, this shouldn't be affecting people, but it really is, and you wouldn't think it would matter. But like even now companies are just starting to come out with like not pink point shoes or like things like that, and it's quite insane. But
it's interesting to me how it says on our like dress code requirements pink tights and pink shoes. Of course we don't have any colored dancers in our studio. Like, would the requirements be different for them, or would they be expected to follow the same like tight and shoe recommendation or requirement? Like, would it change if they joined, or
I don't know. I know that Kennedy and Madeline talked to like Miss Lana some last year, and they're like the only girls in our like age group who aren't white. And I think they're allowed to wear like black tights sometimes, but like the first time that happened, I'm pretty sure they were like yelled at because it wasn't right.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
but
gosh.
It's definitely interesting because like on some level teachers are trying to create this like uniform appearance. But on the other, like, it's a form of like self-expression, and like each person is very individual, so kind of figuring out that balance, I think, and like seeing kind of the adjustments that have been made is
I'm happy for the improvements.
They're very important. Let's see what else. There's also like zero male dancers at PDA.
I know. Sadie and I were talking about this yesterday.
It's sad. I also feel like a lot of studios that don't have large interest from male populations don't really...
They don't advertise it.
Yeah, they don't work to, like, make an effort to bring in more people. Like, we don't have any male programs or anything. Because, like, on some level, like, anyone who wants to dance should be able to.
Yeah.
But a lot of the technique, especially in, like, ballet, is completely different.
Exactly.
And so...
And once, like, the boys start moving up in level, like, they have to start joining the girls' classes.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of little boys, but then they slowly, like, over the years, like, one drops off, and then there's, like, 2 male dancers left in the studio, and they're only, like, 12, but now they'd be stuck in a girls' ballet class, and they don't learn all the things that we do.
Yeah.
Like, they use their skills differently.
And even I feel like with our studio not having any male instructors, I feel like they probably feel very, like, isolated at times, and so I think that affects it. At Montana Ballet, they just got a male instructor who started, and he's talked about some, like, the expectations of males in dance, but also I feel like it's interesting because once they've reached their peak in their career, like, say a little boy, like, danced his whole life and really loved it and became a professional and joined a company or something like that, from there, like, their only option, I feel like, is to, like, be a teacher or something like that. And this is the first time I've had a male ballet instructor, and even, like, I know we're, like, in a safe environment, but the dance world has had a lot of issues with that, of, like, male...
Not even just the dance world, like gymnastics.
Yeah, gymnastics, like, all sorts of places. With male instructors then being sexual predators or, like, targeting especially, like, young people.
The younger girls, and then, like, grooming them to think it's okay,
And so I feel like there's definitely some holdback there because there's a lot of stigma, and reasonably so, around that area. But since, like, no one's making active, like, movements to fix that, it's definitely hard to, like, assess where it's at, you know?
And, like, these men might feel uncomfortable joining an all-female studio. Because of this, like, they don't want to be seen as, like, sexual predators, like... Because some male teachers are. And then maybe that's why there's also not.
Yeah. And I can't talk too much on it because obviously I'm not male. But from what I've noticed, it's quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, and eating disorders. This is a very prominent issue in the dance world.
That nobody really talks about.
Yeah. Have you, like, would you feel comfortable, like, sharing a little bit about your experience?
Yeah. I mean, it started when I was 14. It was always there. Yeah. And I didn't realize until like in the past couple years that I got my period when I was 13, and I got it for a month and it went away. And I would have it intermittently, like 9 months would go by and it wouldn't be there, and then I'd get it, and then that happened for years, and then it just stopped altogether. Wow. And they put me on birth control several times to get it to come back because it's very unhealthy for you to not have your period. Yeah. But I never really thought about why, and my doctors didn't talk about, like, why, or they didn't even think that an eating disorder could be why I wasn't having my period. Yeah. So that was, I think it was happening subconsciously when I was younger. Yeah. I was underweight, so I wasn't getting my period. So it was already happening, I just wasn't focusing on it, and then I wasn't causing it. Yeah. But then, like, over COVID and a little bit before that, I was like, oh, like, now I'm going through puberty. I don't look like what I used to when I was 12. Yeah. I still want to look like that. So then I just, like, stopped eating proper meals and just wasn't nourishing my body at all. It was really unhealthy, and people started to notice, but nobody really talked about it because you don't really talk about it in dance. It's dance. So, and then last year, 8 days after my birthday, I passed out because I weighed 113 pounds, and, like, that's super undernourished for someone who's 5'6". Yeah. Typically, that person should weigh, like, 120 to 130 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was, like, encouraged by teachers, like, maybe not, like, directly to say, like, Renee, stop eating, but, like,
Yeah.
those comments, like, suck in your stomach, I can see your lunch, like,
Yeah.
definitely influeed me.
Mm-hmm.
And then stuff, like, my parents would say, they'd be like, oh, that girl on stage, she's definitely a bigger dancer. And I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're judging her, I don't want to be judged, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose this
Yeah.
weight and not look like her.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's, like, people like to avoid the topic because it's, like, not comfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
But I feel like on some level it's also being normalized.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, it is.
a lot of, like, even just on social media, I'll be, like, scrolling through TikTok or something.
It's like the audio,
And-
my name is Bella Hadid.
Yeah,
Yes, it's
yeah.
that one. They're normalizing
and
it.
it's like when you go to a competition and you decide to not eat 2 days, like, for the entire 2 days
Yeah.
prior so that you, like, look skinny on stage or whatever. But, like, I don't think, especially with the expectation of, like, dancers often reach their peak in their teenage years.
Yeah.
And when they're going through puberty and they're hitting this transition of having a literal 8-year-old's body
Yeah, it's a
to, like,
shock
a
that you're,
fully
like, changing.
developed female, like, that change can be really scary. But I feel like so many dancers' bodies, like, don't get to fully go through that development.
Yeah.
And so when someone does, it's, like, really easy to want to suppress that or change it, and people get worried. And so, like, everyone kind of experiencing that at similar timing and no one exactly being entirely comfortable with it, I think also promotes this, or maybe not promotes, but definitely, like, furthers
Yeah,
and develops this stigma
Encourages it,
or
yeah.
like the unhealthy habits and all sorts of things. And I feel like it also develops in a lot of different ways, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I don't know, it's just also scary that, like, obviously dance is incredibly active.
Yes, yeah.
But it's not, like, a normal person that, like, sat around all day and, like, didn't do anything would still, like, probably eat as much as a normal dancer, or, like, they're burning 2,000 calories just existing.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if we're going to dance and we're working our bodies for, like, 4 hours straight,
Yeah.
like, all that energy has no source to come from. And that is really freaky.
Yeah. My dietitian, like, did the research for my body. And I was eating not even 1,000 calories a day, like, at the peak of my eating disorder.
Yeah.
But for the level of activity that I do for dance, I should be eating 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even, like, reaching a
even
third of
hitting it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And
So I mean,
there's-
people, like, the students are educated. Like, I didn't know how much I was supposed to be eating for my
Yeah.
activity level. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna, like, I wasn't trying to reach that calorie level, but, like, I didn't even know there was, there's an amount that I should be eating to maintain a healthy weight. And we're just not educated about it. Do they
Yeah.
talk about it at NBC? Because I know they have a program that they try to do.
I haven't really heard them talking about it much before, but I definitely feel like they've maintained a relatively, like, healthy dynamic. Like, even if there's still, like, more, like, general tension around, like, body shape and image and stuff like that, they, like, have a snack closet, and we do, like, wellness Wednesdays, and like,
really?
yeah, they definitely try and promote healthy aspects on it. I
That's
think
good, yeah.
Yeah. And also, I've noticed, like, before COVID, I was in elementary school. Like, COVID happened when I was a 6th grader, so I wasn't, like, necessarily actively thinking about my body as much as, like, I am now that I'm older.
Yeah.
But, like, even throughout COVID, like, we've seen, the studies have shown, like, higher rates of eating disorders. The mortality rate from eating disorders has gone up.
Really?
It's, like, one of the, like, 2nd or 3rd highest causes of death from dancers.
Oh my gosh, I didn't.
Yeah.
What's the first?
I don't know, but I know it's pretty high up there. So, like, that awareness, too, of, like, these girls are, like, stuck at home.
Yeah. I found a study for my senior project. And it shows that 12%, this was in 2013, so the data's not quite updated.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's higher now. But 12% of dancers overall suffer from an eating disorder, which like doesn't seem like the number doesn't seem very high, but it is when you think of the amount of dancers.
Over 1 in 10, and like you think about how many people are at our studio.
Yeah, and then 14% of those were ballet dancers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's scary. I have never like been diagnosed with an eating disorder or anything, but I definitely like last year and the year before, as I started to like get more of a culture shock of like I'm expected to look these ways, and if I'm not that, I won't be good enough, or things like that. It hit me more, and so I just started like my body image just like significantly dropped first, and I've never been an overly confident person, but I like we do those things in class that's like name one thing you like about yourself.
No, I can't.
And I would like sit there and like cry because I'm like I hate this so much.
Yeah.
And it just like started presenting in all sorts of ways, and also like people listening, if this is gonna be triggering, like skip past this part.
Yeah.
But like it started with me like being like I don't really need to eat breakfast, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's where it starts for a lot of people. And then I was like, oh whatever, and my parents kind of noticed. They're like, hey Freya, like are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I just get nauseous in the mornings, and I'm also a very like anxious person. Like I've started anxiety meds and stuff, which has actually helped with this stuff, but I would like find ways to hide it. But on one hand, me undernourishing my body made me feel more secure in myself for a short amount of time. It was like the immediate gratification.
Yes. Yeah.
But then I didn't realize how it was like actually making my mental health plummet because my brain didn't have the energy to process emotions.
Yep.
I would be absolutely exhausted and not have the like motivation to do things at home after long nights of dance, stuff like that. And it just kept escalating, and sometimes I'd be like, oh, I also don't need lunch, and then all of a sudden I wasn't eating until I got home from dance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or I got into like an unhealthy cycle of like restrict, then like binge eat, and then like purge or something.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of dancers suffer from
and then you feel guilty
and the
after.
guilt.
It's just a cycle
and
of
it's
it.
so sad, and you're a 13-year-old dealing with this. It's like,
and when you don't like eat breakfast or lunch and you go to dance and you're like, and you feel so tired, you don't have the energy to do it, you're like, oh, I'm not good enough, maybe I need to eat less, maybe I'd feel better. But no, you're exhausted because you haven't had enough nutrition. But like the cycle repeats. You just like keep losing weight. You're like, oh, if I just lost a little bit more, I'd be better dancer.
Or you'd be like, if I could just lose 4 pounds, like I would have like the perfect body. And then maybe
another 4 pounds. Like,
don't lose those 4 pounds, and you're just like feeling worse about yourself. Maybe you do, and you're like, oh, it's never enough is the scary thing. Wherever you get, it's never enough for that kind of mindset, you know? And I feel like this also kind of ties into like the mental health aspect. Like during the time where like I had the most unhealthy relationship with food, and I would restrict myself or put like random caps on things, be like, I'm not allowed to have more than like 10 grams of sugar in a day, or like I need to like cut off carbs wherever I can, or like these weird things. Also like my mental health definitely plummeted. Like I'm already a relatively anxious person, but I started getting like more feelings of depression, and like I started like having like suicidal thoughts, and like there was just a lot that went along with that. And at this point it felt like, oh well, maybe I'd be happier if I was better, right? Like maybe if I just like keep on doing this, I'll get better and I'll be more confident, and then I can fix everything. But once again, inside that mindset, you don't realize it's a cycle you're trapping yourself in. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
You definitely need like outside support from someone to like keep you in check.
And I think that's where it falls through for a lot of people.
They don't have that.
Like I don't know, I've gotten to a much better place where I'm at now, but at that point I like don't have a super strong relationship with my parents. I'm like very scared of them.
Yeah, me too.
And so I would not tell them about anything, or I'd make some dumb excuse. Like,
they asked me about it and I denied it until.
And once my mom like caught me in the bathroom like puking my brains out, and she's like, "Freya, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, my stomach just really hurts." And I like made up some dumb excuse, and they're like, "Okay, whatever." Or like your friends like don't really notice. They're you're just like, oh, I like ate in class earlier, or like
Yeah.
you make up something. And at that point, reaching out, I think, is so hard to do because
It is. Yeah.
it feels like, you know, if you reach out, something's gonna have to change.
At the one, like, I didn't want to reach out, but at the same time, I just, I wanted someone to notice.
Yeah.
Like, I tried to
Yeah.
make it obvious to my
Yeah.
parents because I wanted them to notice.
Yeah.
And they didn't notice until I passed out. And even then,
Yeah.
I still denied it because I didn't want to admit it.
It's scary.
But
yeah.
they eventually got it out of me.
And it's exhausting. I feel like people don't talk about that, like, either like full-on eating disorders or just like disordered eating tendencies and like harmful body image stuff in general is like, it takes a lot of energy. Like,
does.
and it's draining, and it
You're
makes,
thinking about it constantly.
yeah,
It's like,
it's just like nothing else exists in that world.
yeah.
And I feel like that's definitely not talked about enough either, because some companies or like studios might be like, oh, you have an eating disorder, like, let's try and get you help or whatever. But like, I don't feel like resources are offered enough, where, especially dancers, but really I feel like anyone at this age.
Yeah, there's no posters or anything around the studio about it, and we don't ever talk about it.
No, it's never been talked about.
Teachers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Freya, for joining me today.
Of course.
That's a good episode. We got touched on a lot.
Yeah.
And I will see you guys for episode 3.